According to a recent study by L'Oréal Paris, 78% of women have experienced sexual harassment in public spaces. This includes 57% of women who have experienced staring, 55% who have experienced whistling, 51% who have experienced unwanted sexual comments, 44% who have experienced unwelcome touching, 37% have experienced following, and 32% have experienced indecent exposure.
My name is Sophie. I am a street artist, activist, and founder of Cat Calls of NYC and Chalkback. Cat Calls of NYC started in March 2016. So what we're trying to do is raise public awareness and also educate a lot of people so that they can step in and do something and help someone facing harassment. So I decided to start Cat Calls of NYC because growing up in New York City, I was facing street harassment from a young age. I was really frustrated and I felt really silenced, so I wanted to do something to raise awareness and change the culture behind it. And it wasn't until almost 2 years later that it got picked up by media outlets around the world, and that's when it started to grow really quickly. So at the end of 2017, that's when a lot of different catcall accounts popped up around the world. At that point, it was still growing very organically. I was just saying to people, go ahead, start your account, do whatever. And now, a few years later, I've started to make it more formalized. So now the process is a little bit more organized. People join, we add them to a WhatsApp group, we all talk and share struggles and all of that. And it's also become a formalized organization. So Chalkback is now an official nonprofit 501c3 organization, and going forward, what I'm hoping to do is raise funds, make sure there are resources for all of the different catcall accounts around the world. But in order to really make it sustainable and make sure our activism can continue, we need to have funds and resources going forward.
It's very prevalent and it's kind of a joke in a matatu, which is one of the means of public transport. People will laugh and make memes about it afterwards, so the eye is very blind.
It's just those enforced values in our culture where everything is supposed to be for a man and everything a woman does is for men to look at it, to admire it, to judge it. That's why we turn a blind eye to it, because in a lot of people's eyes, catcalling is a compliment.
All these things should not have been said regarding where I am, regarding to which person. People see sex as very free. There are rules as in privacy, as in respect, as in consent, and people often forget that.
Si tuviese que escribir al acoso callejero en 3 palabras, creo que lo resumiría en el primer eslabón de la violencia de género. Así es como lo trabajamos en Argentina.
So if you are one of those people who is ignoring such small incidents and keeping them so small, but that is making that person much more comfortable in doing that, and that is making them, okay, I am entitled to such behavior, and so I think I can get away with it, and you're just bringing that.
Cat Calls of NYC is so powerful because it makes people look at the exact words of the street harassment. A lot of people say catcalling is just words, and by writing the verbatim phrases on the street, we show people these words have a huge impact.
I think it's that we are mobilizing internationally, that we all come together under Chalkback as an organization. We are everywhere in the world. It's hard to ignore us and the problem of street harassment.
Chalk is usually associated with children, with fun, nice, happy, and it looks pretty. So when you walk past Cat Call that is chalked and you read it, the first thing you will think of is, oh, pretty, chalk. And then when you read it, it will hit you pretty hard because you wouldn't expect that.
Una de las frases que nosotras siempre solemos usar es: Si te impacta leerlo, imagínate recibirlo. Si te impacta leer qué lindas tetas que tenés, imagínate recibirlo todos los días.
There's been so many different reactions over the years. A lot of good reactions include people saying the project means a lot to them. It's very powerful and they feel seen by the project because they have similar experiences and similar stories. There are also a lot of bad reactions. For example, with the public chalk, a lot of people say, you can't put that there, it's inappropriate, children might see it, so kind of missing the point and missing the fact that this was said to someone and we need to focus on this problem.
A lot of people consider it vandalism here in Trinidad and Tobago. I remember a time choking, law students was like, this is vandalism.
Especially when I do write those things on the street, especially men will say something about how it's vandalism. I remember this one time someone was standing by and talking to their friends about it, and then they rode off on their bike and screamed, abuse is everywhere, accept it. Just know, like, that's not something you joke about.
Most people are very uncomfortable when they read such things on streets, but that's what that cause of NYC and that cause of Bharat intend to do. They intend to make people uncomfortable because women who go through this, they feel uncomfortable, but nobody really understands that, and nobody really wants to talk about it.
I feel more or less students have feel comfortable to share their stories via our Instagram platform and feel that they have a space to share despite everything, and we as students, as a collective, we could show that we're not taking the lack of security, sexual assault, or just anything on campus, that we can do something about it. So I think it's very empowering as well. Also, people will read the stories and always ask, did this really happen to someone? Like, why is this happening? So I think this is always just choking these messages in public spaces is an opener to conversation and bringing awareness to catcalling and street harassment is something that we shouldn't have to go through on a normal basis.
So during COVID, something that we've noticed is that a lot of girls and women and folks in the LGBTQ plus community have started facing harassment that is very specific to the pandemic. For example, one woman messaged us who is an essential worker working at Dunkin' Donuts and told us that a guy said to her, "Your mask is making me hard." Other women have reported men telling them, "Take off your mask, let me see your smile," or "I bet you're pretty under your mask," or other more vulgar comments related to the wearing of a mask. The other thing that we've noticed in the pandemic is that people are more afraid to get close to other people. So oftentimes harassers will come within 6 feet or take off their mask to catcall, and that means that not only is it scary because someone is being harassed, but it's also scary for a health reason because they're worried about getting COVID.
Here in the Netherlands, there is no legal action against street harassment. There is a policy where if you pinch or slap someone's butt, you can get a fine or you can get a record. But it happens so quickly that a lot of people don't even report it, and a lot of people don't know that the policy is here.
The term street harassment is not even defined legally in our constitution or any policies against it.
One of the things you might know is that sex work is legalized in Amsterdam, which I am very happy with. The thing is that when it comes to tourists and also Dutch people who live here, is that they have this idea that sex work is legalized, so that means the Netherlands is a very open country. So they immediately assume that they have a free pass to talk in a certain way to people, which leads to more street harassment and gender-based violence from tourists and also from the people who live here in the Netherlands. And that's the thing where it goes wrong, because even though sex work is legalized, it does not mean that the line of respect and privacy is gone. It's still there. You still need to have respect for that person. I do think that people perceive Amsterdam as open and free, and because of that, assume that consent is very blurred here. But the thing is, here in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands overall, consent is a word that is very new. You would think it's very basic because it's just asking permission and checking in with each other, and that's not very new. But when it comes to outsiders of the Netherlands, they do assume that because sex work is legalized, you still need to have their permission.
Unfortunately, within Trinidad and Tobago, our small island, we continue to experience relatively high levels of gender-based violence, with 416 women and girls gone missing just in 2020 is a very striking number. Sadly, many women and girls that have been kidnapped use public transportation. Therefore, we are scared to use public transportation, while many of us can't afford to have the luxury of having our own vehicles.
We can't really go jogging, or if you want to, like, there's just all these mental barriers before you decide to do something, because you're like, am I dressed appropriately? Although dressing really has nothing to do with being catcalled, because it's really not the victim's fault. You have to be very deaf, or very, like, you have to cut out everything in your vicinity because people probably yell at you as you're walking.
So when you start, telling women that, okay, don't go out at that time and don't do this and don't wear this, and these things become, in a way, like you're giving space to those men who are predators, who like to feed off, who you're just giving home to misogyny.
As women, we live, just to be a woman right now in Trinidad, I feel to live in a constant state of fear, and we are tired and we are scared all the time, and you never know who can be next.
There is a difference between approaching and there is a difference between harassment. We need to educate people that why consent works and why there is consent, thing called consent. And one of the many reasons for that, there is no sex education in India. People don't talk about sex here. They think that it's taboo, and it's just so annoying that people feel that way. But we have to start somewhere. We have to educate. And the best thing about Catcalls of Bharat and Chalk Back is that they start from that. They start from educating people. They start from bringing awareness to a topic that has not been given light to.
I will say that our government needs to prioritize the GBV crisis, and declare a state of emergency, a plan of action as a response. I believe they could improve this by making it a requirement for all police officers to go through a GBV sensitization training, and also to keep going through the training hours, like if it's every 3 to 6 months, to keep updating it, because I believe that police officers is not trained enough to handle instances of gender-based violence properly, and it could be a sustainable solution to helping and make it easier for victims to want to go to report, because oftentimes we have unreported cases here and you just see things continue to happen,
We need to protect those people who are going through it, but at the same time we need to educate men, educate the society about how consent works and how society just forgets about it just because the person is married or just because the person is a child and has a different body type than a normal person.
Nosotros desde nuestro equipo creemos que el principal cambio está en la educación, que se tiene que garantizar la real aplicación de la ley sexual integral que rige en todo nuestro país, y que además se le debe sumar una campaña contra el acoso callejero como el primer eslabón de violencia que sufrimos todos los días. Creemos que es importante salir a hacer pintadas a los patios de las escuelas, que esto se discuta en las aulas, porque los que hoy son parte de la comunidad educativa pueden ser mañana quienes reciban acoso callejero y quienes vayan a ejercerlo. El avance en materia legislativa contra la violencia de género y por la conquista de los derechos humanos en nuestro país es bastante grande. Hace poco, en diciembre de 2020, logramos aprobar la ley por la interrupción voluntaria del embarazo, que tiene que ver con la autonomía y con el poder de decisión que tienen nuestros cuerpos y cuerpas al momento de gestar, para reducir la mortalidad principalmente de los abortos clandestinos que se venían sucediendo en nuestro país. Esto también nos da la posibilidad de dar otro tipo de debates, y en ese sentido el acoso callejero lo que hace es vulnerar nuestros cuerpos día a día desde muy temprana edad al recibir cantidad de asquerosidades en la calle, cantidad de tipos que se hacen pajas enfrente nuestro, cantidad de tipos que se masturban enfrente nuestro y nos ponen en un lugar de objeto, nos cosifican, y eso el día de mañana, lo que hoy es un acoso callejero puede terminar en un femicidio, y hay que luchar contra este primer eslabón de la violencia.
I absolutely believe that intersectionality is an important lens to look through when thinking about how people experience street harassment in New York. For example, it's not just gender that relates to how people experience street harassment, it's ethnicity, race, age, religion. There are all sorts of factors. Also, ability is an important one, and we see this in the stories that are submitted to us. For example, if it's a woman wearing a hijab, she might say, like, someone might say to her, like, I want you to take that off and suck my dick, basically. We see the ways in which people with different identities and different identity markers are targeted because of that in the streets.
I just want people to be mindful of how they interact and the words that they say to each other within public spaces or even intimate spaces, because it go a long way. Catcalling is not merely a compliment or a joke. These microaggressions placed on a gender hierarchy, the gateway and escalate to greater forms of violence. So just conversations around it and talking about it can help, and basically just doing your part. These small steps do add up. So that's what I would say.
Don't catcall people. Street harassment is not a compliment, and no one wants to be interfered with as they're going through their day for any reason, especially to be reminded about how their body looks like when it's really no one else's business.
I would ask people that when you go about, if you are one of the victims, then you don't have to think that it was your mistake, and if you are, like, if you feel that you're alone, then you're not alone, and there are a lot of women out there who go through something like this, and you can talk about it. If you are not comfortable sharing your identity, we are fine with it. We have places where you can just anonymously share your story. But I think sharing your story has a lot of power in it, and you should share your story so that you can prevent some other person, to go through with it.
Especially the women watching this, I just want you to not lose hope. Keep fighting. I guess just see the good. It's going to get better. Maybe not in this lifetime, but at least for the people coming after us.
If you want to talk back and be part of the fight against street harassment, please follow these Instagram accounts to follow up on their ongoing projects. If you're looking for more content on gender issues, you can also follow She the docuseries on Facebook and Instagram, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel. See you in our next episode.